first question I have for you, John, is how did you get involved with Bond and on the Majesties?
Well, Peter Hunt was directing his first James Bond film. And I'd first met Peter Hunt when we were both junior assistant editors at Shepperton Studios working for Sir Alexander Corder. And Peter advanced through the ranks, the editing ranks, and eventually became a very successful editor on the James Bond films. And I rather lost contact with him for a few years, but unknown to me, he'd been watching my progress, same way that I've been watching his progress, and mine mainly was on TV, films for television like Danger Man. Mm-hmm. And he got into a bit of a jam in Switzerland on his big break to direct on the Majesty's Secret Service. And the conditions were very bad there, the snow conditions and what have you, and he was falling way behind schedule. So he realized he had to have a special unit to direct to make the Bob Run sequence. So he suddenly thought of me. And I was a bit down on my luck at the time, and I was working at Twickenham Studios on the Italian job. And I received a phone call in the dubbing theatre there. And it was Peter speaking from Pinewood. And he said, I might have an interesting job for you. Can you get over to see me? Well, Peter Collinson, who was earwigging this, he was the director of the Italian job. He said, oh, I know Harry Saltzman. I'll get on the phone and give you a big recommendation. I said, Peter, please don't spoil anything. But anyway, he gave me permission to leave the dubbing theatre, and I went off to Pinewood, drove over there, and Peter was filming a scene with Diana Rigg and George Lazenby. And I just gave him a little wave, and when he finished the shot, he came over and he opened up the script and showed me the Bob Run sequence. And he said, read that and tell me what you think. So I read the sequence, and then he came back and I said, well, it's a fantastic opportunity, you know. And he said, well, I've got to talk to Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli, he said, but I don't anticipate too much problem. And on the following Monday, there I was, flying first class to Switzerland to take over the second unit on the Bob Run sequence. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me, and came quite unexpected, as most of these things do. And suddenly there I was, you know, from being quite despondent about my career at one moment, and next minute there I was with a really fantastic opportunity to show what I could do.
I would love to know, when you're walking into a situation like this, Bond is a pretty well-oiled machine. You know, they've made a few movies before this. It's a massive production. Does it feel very like welcoming, and, you know, you have a good sense of where to actually fit in here? Or was it kind of like walking into chaos and trying to make sense of it?
Well, you discover very quickly, like the Bond films were like the biggest, most important films being made at that time. And they had the best technicians. I mean, the whole crew were the top cream of the pile, if you like. So, you know, you had a lot of help. You weren't on your own. It wasn't as though you were working on TV or, you know, working on a minor film. You had whatever you wanted, you got. So you didn't have any excuses about that. The logistics were fantastic. And so I had every opportunity, you know, and I had a great crew. And what was interesting was I wasn't working with British technicians. I was working usually with European guys who were all mountain people. They were all expert skiers. You know, the Clapper boy was a wonderful skier. You know, the whole camera crew were either German, Swiss, or Italian. And because where we were filming, you know, the borders these countries border onto one another, and they're all up in the mountains, and absolute wonderful experience working with these people.
Now, so obviously you had a quick turnaround from agreeing to do this to heading off to Switzerland to actually shoot the second unit stuff with the bobsleigh sequence. What did you do to prepare in those couple of days you had? Did you go back and rewatch some Bond films? You know, what did you do?
No, I was very familiar with the Bond films. Obviously, I mean, I was a fan, if you like, and right from Doctor No onwards. And I was really pleased that Peter Hunt had made such an impression as a film editor, and he did a lot of second unit work as well. So I was very pleased for him, and I admired the films very much. And I admired the way that Peter formed a new kind of editing, you know, a sort of a shortcut version of editing, you know. Sean Connery would just look towards the door, and next minute he was walking down the corridor. It was quite unusual in those days. It was quite an advanced form of editing, and I embraced it very much in what I was doing. And of course, you know, knowing Peter from all those years ago, we had a good relationship and we got on very well. And as soon as I arrived, he actually took the time out to take me down the Bob Run and show me all the various aspects of it. And while we were doing that, some kid came barreling down the Bob Run in a little tiny little sledge and burst into the middle of us. Fortunately, he was okay, but it taught me a lesson. I thought, I've got to be very careful. There's a huge safety aspect with these bobs because they travel at 70 miles an hour and they don't stop. You haven't got any, well, they have a brake, but it's not very effective. So you've got to, you know, first thing I learned was I had to be very well of the security on the track because it was open to the public. And, you know, you'll get kids trying to go down the Bob Run. And if our Bob comes tearing along at 60 or 70 miles an hour and they're in the run, there's nothing we can do to stop hitting them. So I immediately instituted a tight security on the run.
Now, I would love to know, the Bond movies were known for their action sequences, and there's some phenomenal ones that happened before On Her Majesty's, but this film in particular, it really feels next level, like you're seeing an evolution in Bond action, and something I don't think they maintained when you went to the next movie. Was there something going on, like a vibe or just direction even from Peter Hunt when you're even doing that bobsled sequence that we're aiming for something maybe a little different than we usually do?
Absolutely. I mean, I wasn't a skier at that time. Later on, I became a reasonable skier, but at that time, they used to carry me on a sledge or on their backs down the mountainside. I was the only non-skier on the unit. No, it was interesting because I had the use of a guy called Willie Bogner, who was an Olympic skier, but he was also an amateur cinematographer. And he had a specially adapted camera. It was with a Hasselblad viewfinder, so it was a big viewfinder. And he could ski backwards and forwards. He had points at both ends of his skis. And he hadn't been used on the film. And he came to me and he implored me to use him on the Bob Run. And I said, you know, I was not suspicious of him, but you know, he wasn't a conventional cameraman at all. And the English crew, camera crew on there, were all sort of warning me about this chap. You know, they were saying, you know, he's an amateur and, you know, don't take too much notice of what he says. But I started to use him and he was fantastic. And he was very brave. And he after we had, you know, we were actually running three bobsleds on the run at the same time. One was the camera bob, and then there was the adversary bob run, bobsleigh, and then there was Bond's bobsleigh. So we had three, and it was very difficult to keep the distances you require when you film. So Willie said to me, he said, look, if you tie me to the bob with a cable, say at 20 or 30 feet behind the bob, I'll keep absolutely perfect focus. And if I get into trouble, I'll knock this cable out of my battery belt and I can escape by jumping out of the run. Anyway, I looked at him and I couldn't believe what he was saying, but in fact, it proved to be the best way to film the sequence. And we got absolute perfect focus every time. We did have a couple of little spills and we lost a camera. Willie dropped the camera at one point and we had to get another one sent out from England. which delayed us a little bit, but we didn't stop shooting. We were still operating with the normal cameras, if you like. So generally, I mean, Willie was a big bonus on the film, and I used him absolutely a lot. He even stood inside the Bob run and filmed the Bob going past him at 60 miles an hour. And he said to me, he said, centrifugal foot force being what it is, they'll always go up on the wall as they go around the corner. So I can stand on the inside of the curve and get perfect shots every time. So it was very unusual filming, but it certainly worked.
I think Health and Safety would have had a blast with that if you'd done that now.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
No
have been
health
fans.
and safety.
Hello, thanks for checking out that clip. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear the rest of the interview, head on over to spyhards.com, that's SPYHARDS, or look us up wherever you get your podcasts. But until next time, we'll see you among the shadows.